Okay, Aaron, I know this is kind of dumb, but I thought it might be nice to put some things on this PowerPoint and I can talk to you because sometimes people need auditory learning as well as visual learning. So I thought I would put this together and try to uh, review with you because you kind of getting it. You really are getting it, but I just want to review with you so you start to feel more comfortable with major scales and figuring out songs and figuring out what chords go in songs, looking at chords and figuring out what key that song is in. So anyway, I put together this PowerPoint. All right, so we're going to talk about the major scale. When I say major scale, it's the same thing as a major key. If I say key, I'm talking about the major key. When we play songs, we're playing songs in a major key. We don't play minor key songs. So if I say major scale or major key, I'm kind of meaning the same thing. Uh, Chromatic scale, you just got to know that frontwards and backwards, girl. And since you play keyboard, it's really nice. Sometimes I try to teach people and they get mad at me because they're like, I don't want to learn the piano. And I'm just trying to tell them that you don't have to learn the piano, but you need to know the order of these notes. And the piano keyboard is a good visual key because you can see the two black keys separated in the three black keys. It's just a pattern you can visualize. There's no black key between E and F and no black key between B and C. And you know that. Just going to review the major scales of pattern. You don't need to be memorizing lots of notes. Just memorize the pattern. There's a half step between 3 and 4 and between 7 and 8. Those numbers are called scale degrees, and each one has a special name. I know what they are, but I never talk like that. You do need to know that number 1 is the tonic, and sometimes people call it the root. And number 5 is the dominant. That'll come in handy when we start to talk about 7 chords. Sometimes you'll see these written as Roman numerals, and I'll talk about that in a minute. I typically use Arabic numbers. If you forget the pattern, don't panic. Just think about the key of C. There are no sharps and there are no flats in the key of C. So you can just take a piece of paper and write it out. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And then think about your piano keyboard. And that will show you where the half steps are. Because between E and F, there's no black key. So E is the 3, F is the 4. Now you remember your pattern. Oh, there's a half step between 3 and 4, and that's going to apply for any major scale. And when you get to B and C, down here, that's a half step. So that pattern is true for any major scale. So if you ever forget the pattern, just think about your C major scale. There's no black key between E and F is 3 and 4. There's no black key between B and B and C are 7 and 8. So that's one way to memorize it. I think we went over this before. Those degrees tell you what chords are going to fit in the key. 1, 4, and 5 are major chords. The number 1 is the most important major chord because, hey, that's what the key is named after, right? 2, 3, and 6, those are your minor chords. And 6 is the most important one. It's called the relative minor. It's the 6th degree of a scale. Sometimes you'll hear people say, well, A minor is the relative minor of C. And people can turn that around backwards and they can say, well, C is the relative major of A. Or sometimes C is the relative major of A minor. So, if you hear that, that's what they're talking about. It's no big mystery. That's all they're talking about. And you don't have to start at 1 and count all the way up to 6, do that pattern thing. If you think about it, it's really only 3 half steps down from the 1. So if we were talking about the key of G, if you go 3 half steps down, that's going to be E. Look at your keyboard. Check me out. So the relative minor of E, the relative minor of G is going to be E minor. All right. So let's talk about keys. I went ahead and typed out the key of F for you here. If we write like this is my method of doing it. I write down 8 numbers, and then underneath each number, I just say, well, I want to figure out the key of F. So I put an F in number 1. Then I go a whole step up. F, F sharp, G. So G is going to be in my number 2. G, G sharp, A. Okay, A is going to be there. But I have to remember there's a half step here. So it's going to go A to A sharp. Well, also A sharp is also called B flat. So I just put B flat there. Typically, you're going to want to represent each letter in the key. If you write down A sharp, I'm cool with that. But musicians like to see every letter represented. That's why you won't see F, G, A sharp. They're going to call A sharp B flat. It's no big deal, really it isn't. Anyway, so from 4 to 5, that's going to be another whole step. So B flat's going to go up to B, and then up to C. 5 to 6, that's also going to be a whole step. C, C sharp, D. Okay, so that's why D is in number 6. D to 7, another whole step. D, D sharp, E. So that's why I've got E there. And there's a half step between 7 and 8, so E to F. When you're writing out these keys, if you don't get the same letter in number 1 and 8, you have done something wrong. Alert, alert, danger, Will Robinson, you need to stop right there, do not pass go. Go back and figure out you've made a mistake somewhere. So just make sure that your 1 and your 8 end up being the same letter. So when we did all that, we can see that 1, 4, and 5, that's going to be your major chords. F major, B flat major, C major. And then there are 3 possible minor chords. G minor, A minor, D minor. So now you're saying, well, what if I'm looking at a song and how can I tell what key it's in? You're going to look for the 3 major chords, and that's going to tell you what key it's in. Since 4 and 5, you've got 3 major chords, and they're 1, 4, and 5. Well, 4 and 5 are just a whole step apart from each other. So if you see 3 major chords and 2 of those chords are close to each other, that's 4 and 5. Your other one is number 1, and that's going to be the key it's in. Every once in a while you're going to find a song that does not have 3 major chords in it. What you're going to have to do is use a little detective work, like we did for the anthem. I don't know if you remember, but we looked at the anthem, and it only had 2 major chords, and it had 2 minor chords. So let's look at that. The chords were B minor, A, D, and E minor. So I always like to look at the major chords first. So when I see A and D, I go, well, hey, they are more than 1 whole step apart, So they definitely are not 4 and 5. Which makes sense anyway, because when you write a song, you're going to at least use your number 1 chord. So one of these is the number 1 chord. So we've got to figure out what key this song is in. Is it in the key of A? Hey, could be. Is it in the key of D? Who knows? Let's do some detective work. Let's figure it out. So I'm going to check the key of A first. And I'm just going to write out all the notes of the key of A like I did before. And I just went through the steps and I wrote it out. A. Whole step to B. Another whole step to C sharp. And here's where the half step is. C sharp to D. Another whole step to E. Whole step to F sharp. Whole step to G sharp. And here's your half step to A. So then I say, okay, if it's in the key of A, I know that the major chords are going to be A, D, and E. So far, so good, because, hey, we've got an A and we've got a D. Great. Hey, it's looking good. My minor chords are going to be B minor, C sharp minor, and F sharp minor. Hey, wait a minute. Where's the E minor? Oh, this song has an E minor chord in it, If it happened to be in the key of A, it can't be in the key of A because, look, if it were, E would have to be a major chord. So this ain't going to work. It's just not going to work. We've got a B minor, that works, but the E minor is what's not working here. So it can't be in the key of A. So then we say, well, let's try the D. Maybe it's in the key of D. So we go to D. D, whole step up to E, whole step up to F sharp. Here's where the half step is, F sharp to G, G up to A, A up to B, B whole step up to C sharp, and here's where that half step is again, okay? So now we check it again. We say 1, 4, 5. That's our major chords. D, yes. G, we don't have a G major, but we do have an A major. So far, so good. Looking good. E, that's number 2, so that's going to be a minor chord. Hey, we got an E minor in our song. And 6 is also a minor chord, so we got a B minor. So that's how we figured out that the anthem is actually in the key of D, because these 4 chords fit into the key of D. Okay, that's nice and dandy when, someone's showing you some chords, hey, thanks a lot, appreciate it. But what if you don't have the chords? You've heard a cool song on the radio, and you're like, man, what is the deal? I want to figure this song out as rocks. Aaron, take your iPod or your MP3 player, whatever. Take it to your piano. You're a good musician and you're a good singer. So take it to your piano, turn your piano on, use one finger, and figure out a few notes of the melody. If you try to just pick chords, it's going to take you forever to randomly just pick chords to see what's working. Go find you some notes in the melody, because just like the chords have to fit into a key, those 8 notes, when we go 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8, all the chords have to have notes that fit in that. So does the melody. The melody has to be one of those 8 notes. So why not just take your finger and find some of those notes in the melody? So that's what we're going to do. So let's say you went to the piano and you like the chorus. I mean, it's really got your ear. So you've taken your little magical finger and you have found these 5 notes. B, A, C, G, F sharp. Kind of weird, I know, but let's just say. So what you want to do next is you want to kind of put them in some kind of chromatic order. In other words, from left to right on the piano. I don't really care what letter you start at. I just happen to start with A. But what you're looking for are the half steps. Did you find a section of the melody that has a half step? And sure enough, here's a half step. F sharp to G. And you're probably saying, well, why are you looking for half steps? Because there are 2 places in a major scale where there's a half step. There's a place between 3 and 4 and between 7 and 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, well, let's put F sharp and G in position 3 and 4 and see what kind of key that would be, and then see if these other notes fit in that key. Does that kind of make sense? I'm going to show you. So what I'm going to do is put F sharp and G in 3 and 4, and I'm going to work my way out. I know normally we write a letter in number 1 and we go from left to right. Well, here we're going to do detective work, and we're going to go backwards from 3 back to 1, and then we're going to go from 4 all the way to 8. And we're only doing this to find out the theoretical key, the potential key, if notes 3 and 4 were F sharp and G. Just theoretical. Let's see what that key is. So when you do that, if you go back, there's a whole step between 2 and 3. So if we go down a whole step from F sharp, we're going to get E in position 2. If we go down another whole step, we're going to come to a D on position 1. So we're talking about the key of D. So then we're going to go to number 4, and we're going to work to the right like we normally do. There's a whole step from 4 to 5, so G to A. And then from 5 to 6, that's another whole step. So that's A to B. And then from 6 to 7, that's a whole step, so that's B to C sharp. And from 7 to 8 is a half step, C sharp to D. Hey, we got the same letter in 1 and 8, so that's what we're talking about. So this is not, we don't know for sure if this is the key yet. We've still got to take those notes that we were looking at and see if they fit in here. The notes of the melody that we kind of picked with our finger and listening to the song and singing along with the song and trying to figure out a few notes of the melody. We're going to see if they fit in the key of D. So we found that A, B, C, F sharp, and G were in the chorus of the melody. So let's see. A, that fits. That's number 5. B, that fits. That's number 6. C, uh-oh. The key of D does not have a C. It has a C sharp. So crap. What are we going to do now? Well, if it didn't fit, if F sharp and G don't belong in 3 and 4, maybe we need to move them to 7 and 8. So that's what I did here. I said, well, theoretically, let's just put them here and see what kind of key we get there. Well, if you do that, you can go ahead and put, since you know 8 and 1 are supposed to be the same, you can just put your G over here in number 1 and just work from left to right like normal. G, whole step to 2. 1 to 2 is a whole step, so G is going to go to A. Another whole step will take you to B. B is a half step to C. Whole step to D. Whole step to E. Whole step to F sharp, so that worked out good, and we got the half step. So now we're saying, okay, well, theoretically, the song could be in the key of G. So let me take these few notes that I found in the melody with my magic finger and my iPhone or whatever, and let's see if they fit. So A, hey, that's number 2. B, that's number 3. C, hey, that's number 4. F sharp 7. G is 8. I think this song is in the key of G. Okay, I know I've probably forgotten a bunch of things I wanted to tell you, but I did want to explain to you about Roman numerals. Sometimes in music theory books or just in general, sometimes people use Roman numerals to represent those degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, those numbers of the scale that I was talking about. And you'll typically see a capital Roman numeral for 1, 4, and 5. And they're capitalized to remind you that those are the major chords. And for the 2, 3, 6, they use lowercase Roman numerals to remind you those are minor chords. Sometimes people even go to the extreme of putting a little lowercase m beside those to remind you that they're minor. Anyway, I found this video on Elevation Worship. It's a cool song called Exalted One. I want you to go there and I want you to watch it. There's a fellow there playing, he's got a baseball cap on, and as he's singing, they actually put up the Roman numerals right there so you can see the progression, the chord progression. And they're doing it that way so if you want to put it in any key you want, you know the pattern. Oh, they're playing a 1 on that phrase, and oh, in the chorus they're doing that. You don't have to transcribe it yourself. You've already got the numbers, and you can just quickly put it in any key you want to put it in. And just as a side note, if I remember correctly, there's only one minor chord in the song, and guess what? It's number 6. And like I say, number 6 is a special chord. If there's only one minor chord in a song, it's typically going to be number 6, which is the relative minor. Anyway, I think that's all I've got to say, but I might put another slide on this, I might not. But anyway, check out this video. It's pretty awesome.